No one really knows how or why the love affair between Northern Ireland and motorcycle racing began. But what we do know is that a man called Dunlop, based in Belfast, invented the pneumatic tyre. And that years later, another Dunlop, racing all over the world in a career which spanned 3 decades, wrote into the history books. Joey Dunlop wasn't the only one. Our small country has produced some of the greatest road racers of every decade since the first flag dropped. When the love affair began is easier to answer. It was the first time they'd ever clapped eyes on a motorcycle in the early 1920s, and they've been racing them ever since. This is the story of those leather-clad heroes, the girls who loved them, the mothers who worried for them, and the wives who lost them. Racing only for the glory and the thrill of the win, these lads in the days before accessible pop heroes and TV soap stars were the real local heroes, and the girls just loved them. The pits see the ever-increasing interest of women in the sport, not just as timekeepers for boyfriends or husbands or manning the lap position boards as here with Tom Heron's wife Andrea, but as spectators. Talent spotting before the inevitable dance that night when winners will be the focus of female attention. It's the mating game and as primitive as the migrating herds of the Serengeti.
With a lot of the riders sleeping in the paddock, it was a real magnet for all of us young girls in those days. It was quite a competition to see who could maybe get the closest, and of course some of the continental riders, especially Agostini now, he would have been a major draw, myself included.
More importantly, it is the story of a unique era in road racing, a golden age in the 70s, brought to life by the gutsy rivalry of these amateur racers and the even fiercer rivalry of their fans, split into 2 main camps, the Armoy Armada and the Dramara Destroyers. Add to the pot winners like County Down star Tom Heron, Moira's Billy Guthrie, a proven winner, as was Campbell Gorman, Norman Dunn and Belfast City boy Abe Alexander, a short circuit winner, and he too waiting for his first road win. The scene was set for a classic season of excitement and drama in the spring of '74, and that's just what the riders delivered and the fans enjoyed. The troubles in the 1970s meant that very little coverage of these momentous moments in the province's #1 spectator sport appeared either on TV or in the newspapers. Indeed, how the Northwest 200 managed to be run right in the middle of the Ulster Workers' Council strike of 1974 remains a triumph to the resilience of the hundreds of their unpaid volunteers who made it happen.
We were going to the Northwest and a fella jumped onto the wing of the guard and said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "We're going to the Northwest." And he says, "No, you're just being hijacked." So I explained to him then where we were going, we weren't working. So he let us go on. The job well done.
Motorcycling was a hobby and a passion for thousands of young men across Northern Ireland, including an aspiring young photographer, Alwyn James. Alwyn had been working as a press photographer, but developed an interest in 16mm filmmaking, and together with his older brother Colin, they decided to turn this interest into a career. Though Colin saw himself as the funny man in front of the camera, it was Alwyn who produced the classic comedy, The Good, the Bad and the Cuddly. Just when he was about to release the film, the goodies hit the television screens, as did Monty Python. Alwyn and fame were pipped at the post. With a couple of professional films now under their belt, a chance meeting between Alwyn and an old school chum, Abe Alexander, the 1973 King of Kyrgyzstan, was to inspire their most ambitious project yet, the filming of a whole season of road racing never before attempted. Their historic footage has given us this unique record of those golden years in the 1970s. Let's return to the Armoy Armada and the Dramara Destroyers. Who were they? These country boy racers who would put their racing machines and road racing before anything else. Centred around Armoy in County Antrim and Dramara in County Down, the Armoy Armada boasted 3 racers. Joey Dunlop, then aged 22 and yet to win his first national road race. Mervyn Robinson, Joey's brother-in-law, and the more experienced of the two, but equally waiting for that first win. And Frank Kennedy, like the other two, far from a match for the more experienced Dramara destroyers, headed by Ray McCulloch, who had been racing and winning local races since 1960. And in the Ulster Grand Prix of 1971, the last year the Prix held international status, Ray had beaten world champion Jarno Saarinen in a rain-soaked thriller. Another winner in the County Down camp was Ian McGregor, who tasted glory as far back as 1965 when winning the Northwest 200. And at the time the James boys started filming in 1974, the third rider was Trevor Steele. And talking of steel, let's take a look back at these men of steel. Some who didn't even bother with the pudding bowl helmets and raced with their hair blowing in the wind. Dublin ace Stanley Woods poses for the photographers, and on the grid the blonde bombshell local hero Walter Rusk. Walter is joined by Norton team manager Joe Craig and Scotland's Jimmy Guthrie. This rare footage from the 1935 Ulster Grand Prix shows just how many fans crammed the hedges along the circuit, all hoping, praying, willing on their local heroes, and knowing our boys were up against works-prepared machinery and champion racers. But when you've 90,000 fans, miracles can happen. Time and time again, our boys astounded the works teams, not only with their riding skills, but as tuners finding more speed than the professional factory mechanics. This tuning tradition was never lost, and all our top men did their own spanner work. By the time we reached the 1950s, road racing had become part of our culture and the greatest outdoor sporting spectacle in the land. The 1955 Cookstown races prove the point, when the main street in Cookstown became a racetrack for one day in the year. And where you find brave, fit, handsome and exciting men, you'll find the girls. Kirkeston in 1968 saw the ever-increasing number of female fans following the sport, or more accurately, the boys in leather. Car radios were blaring out pop tunes like Hey Jude by the Beatles, Simon and Garfunkel were singing So Here's to You, Mrs. Robinson, and the alcohol-free dance halls were blasting out Mony Mony by Tommy James and the Shondells. Life just didn't get any better. But while the fashion of the day was pure London's King's Road, with the flower power trousers and Twiggy-style short haircuts, a two-wheeled revolution was unfolding inspired from the Far East. Dying out were the 50cc tiddlers of the early 60s, whose riders honoured Northern Ireland's only Grand Prix world champion, Ralph Bryans. Of the bigger bikes, the Bull Tacos and their Mackeys that dominated the 250 and 350 classes, they were being eclipsed in power and speed by the Japanese Paka racers from Yamaha, based on their World Championship winning bikes. The world of the tweaked-up road bike Nortons and AJS 4-strokes was gone forever. The days when you rode your bike to a meeting, raced it and rode home again, if it hadn't expired in the race, were numbered. Just like the number plates you didn't bother taking off, nor did the scrutineers ask you to. The two-stroke Yamaha had changed all that. If you wanted to race and win from the 70s on, there was only one bike. You just had to have it. And with few sponsors in those days, that meant sacrificing everything to buy, beg, borrow or steal a racing Yamaha. And everything meant just that. Everything. Girlfriends were neglected, marriages postponed, house buying was put on the back burner. All available cash went on the pursuit of the thrills of the racetrack. Our story really